And I'll go back and I'll do the command again. Is that bigger? Can you see it? Do you want it bigger yet?
That's okay, I can see it.
You sure? Because I could probably do one more layer. We're not going to spend a lot of time in the command line. Let's see, default font 24. Trouble is, I think I have to relaunch it to make a difference. There. Is that better? All right. You guys remember DOS? This is a weird. Mongo is actually easier to install on Windows than it is in Linux, which is its more native environment. Because in Linux, you have to give permissions. Here you don't. So server 3.4 and bin. So I'm going to start the actual server, which is MongoD. And this is basically, notice it's just, not that this matters a whole lot, but it's waiting for connections. Right, so the server, this is like launching SQL Server or something, except it doesn't run all the time. You have to launch it, and then it would run until I close it. But I'm going to do another command. This is I'm going to get up the interface, such as it is, as the command line interface. And then I'm going to build a web page that talks to it. So again, I'm going to real quickly cd program files. You know, you can prevent yourself from having to type all this if you path it, if you put it into the Windows path. It's hard to talk and remember the path. All right, so this is talking to the other one, and one of the ways you could tell if I brought up the other one is, no, that's the same one. It now has a client there. It's not just listening. It's, you know, if you go down to the bottom. All right, so I'm not going to do a lot here. I just want to show you a little bit of what I've got. So I'm going to do show databases, and it'll show me that I have 3 of them. I have ShowTracker, which is the one we're going to work with, and then there's a text store that I was playing with. So I'm going to use ShowTracker. This is just like with, you know, it switches it to ShowTracker. One of the things about this, though, that's weird and is to me a little bit troubling is that if the ShowTracker doesn't exist, it makes it at that moment. So if you misspell it, you have a database, you know, right? A new database with that name, whatever you misspell it as. I'm going to, I'm just going to real quickly show collections. And this one I have artists, fans, shows, and venue. Okay, I just wanted to show you that I have those. Collections are their equivalent of tables. They're stored as JSON objects, which we're not going to have to worry too much about, but I'm going to, let's do db venue dot find. This is the generic. This is like a select star, and it'll show all of the venues. Now, they're not super readable in this one. Okay. That's okay. So notice there's a jazz alley. JSON, do you guys know JSON at all? Again, it doesn't matter a whole lot for this. It's basically a key value pair. I actually wrote the key as a text here. If you don't do the key, like if I do find an artist, so if I do db.artists.find, this is the kind of key you get if you don't give it a key. Right? It just generates a random number for you. But it's basically, as I said, a key value. Artist would be the key. This would be the value key. And then you can put arrays in there, and you can put other objects in there. It can get really complicated and embedded. Not going to worry about that too much. So just, yeah.
Does the object ID remain the same once it's created, or does it constantly change every time?
No, it's the same. Once it's created, it's always the same. You can actually kind of use it to link. So one of the things about a NoSQL database, which really means that there's no schema. So the structure of any particular collection is entirely up to you, and it's entirely up to you to be consistent. You can put anything in there. It doesn't care. The structure of it doesn't have to be the same every time. It makes your life a lot easier for searching if the structures are pretty similar, right? But they don't have. There's nothing in the database that enforces that. You can also relate. Like I could do shows and I could use the object ID. I didn't, but you could. But there's no such thing as a join, right? There's no way you could do a relational join between two tables, two collections. You could do a query first of your of your artist, get this key, and then do a query of the other table to see if there's any matches to that key. But there's no way to actually join those two tables together. So one of the things that happens, and again, this is all not super relevant to what I'm going to discuss, which is more in the relational, how to do this as classes and objects. You can put, it's not uncommon that say a venue would have a subgroup, an array of shows, right? So there might be a show table, but the venue might have an array of shows. They don't worry about redundancy at all. NoSQL databases are really good for gathering non-structured information. Things like social media, getting it off of Facebook or Twitter or Reddit or whatever. Then it's really good for that kind of thing. It's not good for doing your accounting. It's not really good for point of sale or inventory either. Partially because they don't even guarantee, particularly if you're doing what they call sharding, where you spread your database across multiple machines, which could be spread all over the world. They don't guarantee that any one query is going to return the same answer as the last query. Because when they go out, they just get all the information they can, but if something is down or something is slow, they just exclude it. Right? So it's not, as I said, it's not a very good for like point of sale or.
So that's why when you use social media, you search the same thing, you get different results every time.
You could be, yeah. So social media is, but they are really good for two things. And again, this isn't the super relevant part, but it because you can spread them across what they call sharding, because you can spread it across multiple machines all over the world. Scaling is easy, right? You can make databases that are petabytes large, just spread them all over the world, and they can be as huge as you want. Whereas a relational database, if you want to make it bigger, you get bigger hard drives. Does that make sense? So, I mean, you can do this on cheap machines and spread it all over the place, and it can grow massively fast, whereas a relational database is much harder to grow to those gigantic sizes. All right, so I just wanted to show you that it was there, because mostly we're going to ignore it because we're going to do it in C#. Any questions on yeah?
Did you ever use Cloud9 to?
I haven't. I haven't. I know you can even if you go to the Mongo, they offer a cloud version of it. And it makes sense to have it on a cloud to a large extent.
Yeah, I have my collection on MLab, and then I'm using Mongo and Cloud9, but every time I try to connect to it, it just keeps failing. So I'm not sure.
So Cloud9 is probably the path. I'm not sure. It's really easy to connect locally. I'm not sure how. I'd be happy to look at it sometime, but I don't know if I
Yeah,
know
Brennan
the.
said it might be the port or something is messed up.
It could be, yeah, because there's a default port locally, and there's probably a different port at Cloud9. Does he use Cloud9 in the class?
Yeah.
So he should know the ports, does he not? Or
Well, I think he said that it might be blocked by the school or something.
is it?
He was telling us to turn on our Wi-Fi hotspots.
Oh.
Try it that way.
And it works then?
Dwayne got it to work.
That would be something to ask. It could be blocked. That is a possibility. We have a complicated setup here in the sense that we're a subnet of the school net, and we're blocked from the school net because they don't trust us. And then there's the school net itself, and the school net has its own prohibitions. So imagine, I don't know if we inherit all of their prohibitions. David might know. It's an interesting question, but no, I haven't tried it on Cloud9. I actually haven't tried Cloud9. I should.
I like it.
Is it free?
Huh?
It's free?
Yeah.
So you can put this on AWS and you can put it on Azure too. And they're free for a while. It's just a little bit tricky as to when it might not be free. So I'm going to do Visual Studio. That's Blend. That's not what I want. Blend is a weird thing. Have anybody ever played with Blend? It gives you a slightly more graphical way and a JavaScript heavy way of developing certain kinds of applications. So one of the things that I wanted to show you, which is, again, not relevant, I'm just going to do a new project real quick. Python is back in Visual Studio. If you update your Visual Studio, if you have 2017, Python is back, which is good. I really hate idle. Because they said it wasn't ready. So when they released Visual Studio, they said that the Python libraries weren't ready yet. So mainly the part that's probably, the Python is still, when I've played with it, it's pretty core Python. But the IntelliSense, the Visual Studio, the nice thing about Visual Studio as opposed to idle, which is more like a text editor, is that everything is color coded, and there's there's IntelliSense, and there's the little red underlines, and so there's all sorts of helps that you don't get in the usual Python editor. I'm not doing Python right now, by the way, but I'm going to do File, New, Website. I'm going to make an empty website. I want to make sure it's C#. I'll call it ShowTracker. And I'll post this, even though I don't know if it'll do you any good, but if you want to look at it. Okay, so an empty website, for those of you that took 172, you realize that an empty website is truly empty. There's nothing there. There's a web config file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add, actually not add, I want to do the manage NuGet. I'm going to browse, and I'm going to get the Mongo driver. One of the neat things about Mongo is that there are drivers in every language I've encountered. There are Java, Python, and they're all pretty easy to use. That being said, Did you see the news a few weeks ago? Mongo databases were subject to a really big hack. Because essentially they have no security. There is some. You can do some things to secure it, but the security is written in plain text. So if they hack the security files. All right, so it added all the Mongo drivers for Visual Studio. And I can close that. So I think what I'm going to do is just make a list of venues. And as I said, I don't want to take the whole class. I thought it would be fun to show this. And also we have time in this class. So there might be other things I'll show you along the way. Part of what I want to show you is just the, the process of where we build these objects. So ideally, we would have planned this a little bit ahead of time, but I'm just going to add a class. And I'm going to call this class venue. And it's basically going to be a class where it just stores the venue information. That last dialog box, if you didn't see it, is just to say that it needs to go in an app code folder. So a venue would have, I don't know that I need the ID, but let's put it in there. Or in mine, it was venue key. And I'm going to do I need to do public. And why did it not like my set? Typing is always. All right. Oh, I know why. Anybody know why? I always forget. It gives you a constructor. And I don't need the constructor. It can go away. I'm going to do public string venue name, which is actually the key. I have to remember the venue key is their name. So what are the fields? Address, city, zip code, email. And I'm just going to copy. Let's see. I'm just changing the field names. City, email. I think I have the zip code. I had a URL. I'm going to ignore, for right now, there's an array of genres, the restrictions I could add. But there's an array of genres. I'm going to ignore those for right now. It would involve a little more complicated, clever stuff. So let's stop with restrictions. So this is the purpose of a class like this is what? Anybody have an idea? This has sets and gets. And the nice thing about Microsoft is you can be really shortcut about the sets and gets. But what would a class like this be used for? There's no methods, just fields. It's just to store data. It's just a way to bundle the data Because otherwise you'd have to pass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields, right? Now you only have to pass one thing, and it bundles all those together. And it represents basically the same thing that the collection or the table represents. So that's it, its only purpose. Now I'm going to make another class because we need something to kind of manipulate, store. This represents one venue, right? So I could do a class, we could call it venues, I guess. This is what Microsoft does when it makes data classes, although we don't have to name them that way. So in the venues, I'm going to do a public list, and it will be of a venue. And what do I want to call this? So how about venue list? Okay. In the constructor, I'll make this venue list equals new list venue. So I'm just initializing my list. So that what this class is going to be is just to store and add and subtract venues, right? I'm going to, so I'll do a public void add venue, and we will just add a venue. I'm going to do one other thing with this. Well, there's a couple of things we could do. So venue list dot add b. I'm going to add something to this in a moment because I'm going to make a data class that talks to the database. And when we add it here, we might also call it and add it to the database. There's a couple of ways you could do that. One of the ways you could do is go through and list all of the, loop through the list and add anything new to the database, which might actually be better, but I think I'm just going to add it as I do it here, just for the example. This is like proof of concept. And I think the only other method, although there could be lots of them in here, the only one I'm going to do is public list venues. Actually, so list venue. And then I need to get list, or get venues, rather. I'm just going to return the venue list. It's just a get for the venue list. So I can do that in the web page in the end. Why is that not how? Oh, because it doesn't need a parentheses. Does that make sense? Again, I'm just trying to show you kind of how these classes relate. So if you were to do, what kind of relationship would there be between venue and venues?
One would not exist without the other.
So this is containing venue, right? So it would either be, depending on your business model, either aggregation or brain just farted out the other one. What?
Something.
Yeah. What?
Composition.
Composition. Composition, if when you remove this class, all the venues go away. Aggregation, otherwise. All right, as I said, I'm not going to do a lot here. I just kind of want to show you a relation of the classes. And you would do this like for artists and other things, depending on your, one of the things you should do before you ever start all of this is probably wireframe your website and figure out what you're doing, which I'm not, but I'm going to add one more class. And I think I'm going to call this one manage venue data. I'm not sure that's a good name. I have real trouble naming these classes sometimes. And this one is going to talk to the database, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to get the stuff out and we're going to put stuff in. So I'm going to have a method to, probably, so public, probably should do a Boolean, but I'm going to do void. Did I call that add venue in the other class? I did, so let's name it something different. Up here, I'm going to make a connection. Actually, I can't. I remember it won't let me. I have to do the connection in here. Although I actually think I'm going to just leave that one empty, and I'm only going to do the method public list venue get venues from database. All right. So in here, I am just going to, I have to do something up here. I have to say using MongoDB, using MongoDB driver, and using MongoDB.bson, which is their JSON. Okay. Now if I could just remember this. So I'm going to Mongo client. This assumes, by the way, that it's all on a default port, which is, with your question, you'd have to give it some port probably. Otherwise, so I'm going to do Mongo, not Mongo, so client rather, dot get database, and I'm just going to do ShowTracker. That will fail because it is case sensitive. Okay. And let's see if I can remember this one. Collection. Oh, I know what I need to do here. I need to give this as a name. Let me look real quickly. I've done this like 3 times, but my brain is never, so I want actually GitHub. var. So I need, I was trying to remember what data type, and it's just var. call it collection equals db dot get, I think, get collection venues. Was it venue or venue? It was venue, I think. And I think I have to do and I think I want to do toList. Oh, I can't do a toList yet. I just need another just okay, that's fine. Getting ahead of myself. Let's just do document equals collection. Find, and then this is where I'm going to just steal it from here. New Bison document to list. I have an extra. Okay. That sounds complicated, and it did take me a while to figure out. But it's really not all that complicated, just so far. You basically just create a new client to talk to the Mongo database. You figure out which database you want to talk to. You figure out which collection in the database you want to talk to. And it returns it as, it says BSON, but it's the same as JSON, right? BSON document. And I'm putting it to list just because it makes my life easier on the next thing. So I am going to do real quickly a for each. So I can do for each. I think the BSON document V in document. And I can go through, I'm going to create a venue object. Venue, actually I need to create a list too. List venue, I'm just going to call it venues lowercase equals new list. I have that already? Nope. New list venue. Is this making any sense? So I'm going to loop through the document. First I'm going to do I'm going to create a venue object, and then I'm going to use it to store the data from this. So notice let's do key, venue key is equal to v dot get element. And what I can do is the element is, you need to know what they are. So it is ID. Oh, and then I need to convert it to string. And then dot address equals v dot get element. And the element is address. And also I have to turn it to string because none of them are strings for whatever reason. They're all vars. So ven.city equals v dot get element. city to string, and that should be lowercase. Ben dot. So what have I got? Zip code equals b dot get element. I know this is boring. I'm just trying to get all the elements here and assign them to the object. And venue, so what do we got? URL and email, I think, are all that's left. And restriction. Email. Actually, why don't I just do this? And the last one is restriction. All right. So I'm almost ready. I got one more thing to show. So I'm going to add this to the list. So actually what I want to do is venues.add Ben, and then I'm just going to return venues. Come on. Okay. So basically what we've done is we connected to the database. This class connects to the database, gets the collection, gets all the data from the collection, then loops through it and writes it to objects, and then writes those objects to a list. So I think in venues, one of the things that I'm going to do in the collection, maybe instead of making this a new list venue, I'm going to say that this equals manage venue data. So let me do that up here. Manage venue data. I'm going to just call it MV equals new manage venue data. And instead of making this new, I'm going to say that it is equal to mv dot get venues from database. So we'll have the venues from the database right at the beginning when we call venues, and then we can add to it. We can do whatever. So now I can do a web page. Does it make sense what I've done at all? That's good, because I'm not sure I'm making sense. So, so I'm going to do, I'm going to add a web page. I'll leave it as default. I'm going to add something you may not have seen, even if you were in the, I'm going down to data, but I'm going to, instead of a grid view, I'm going to do a data list. And I'm going to leave it as data list 1, but you have to do some work with the data list. So I am going to add an item template. So item template. Data lists are really good if you're in the Microsoft world. They basically allow you to set it up in a much more flowing way than a data table, right? So basically, this is really good for things like a product list where you have a picture and then the description to the side and things like that. I mean, this is really good for that. I'm not going to be that fancy, but what I'll do is a quick H2, and then I will put %, # eval, and I'm going to put in here, so it was venue key, right?
Yeah.
Interesting that it's not. Okay. So this is like you're inserting code in here. It's kind of like with PHP, right? You're just putting code inside the thing. And I'm putting it inside of H2, which I'm not sure makes any sense, but that's okay. I'm going to do a paragraph, and I'm just going to do, I think I'll pull that paragraph down. Percent.
What does the percent depends on?
So that tells you that what you're doing in here is not HTML, right? What you're doing here, it tells you to, you have the same thing at the top. If I go to the very top.
Right.
So this is telling the, particularly IIS, the web server, that what's in the content in here is not HTML, that it is C# or at least .NET. Right? This tells you what the language is. This tells you, and this is basically like when you do your PHP in the page. Has anybody done that? Yeah, okay, well that's what it kind of looks like. The eval is a keyword that says to look at this, you know, the value here from the list that we're going to hook up, and then put that there. So we had address. And if I misspell anything, it will fail. And I'm going to just do a BR here for this. And then I'm going to do this again for city. I don't want a P though. And then no, because it's going off the class I made, not off the data, the database. Oh, it's the city address, zip code.
So you obviously get parentheses for that.
Oh, thank you.
Not there. Before.
Yes, you're right. Good eye. And I keep getting the P, and I don't want the P. I'm just doing the breaks inside of the. It's going to do email. I might try something, although this isn't real. I might do A, F equals percent eval. I think I need to do these as single quotes here. URL. Okay, percent eval. And then can I do? Does that work? We'll see.
That's squiggly.
What?
That's still squiggly.
Oh, it wants a. Why does it want a semicolon? Oh, because I don't have a pound sign. There we go. This one needs a pound sign too. I'm just curious if that my URLs are not real, but this should make them look like a real one. Shall we see if that works? It actually won't work. I know why, but I'll show you. Oh, wait, there's actually some code I have to do still. Very little code though. So in the C# part of this, I just need to declare my venues, which is spelled wrong again. Equals new venues. And so I'm going to do list venue equals new. Actually, not equals new. Equals v dot get venues. And then I'm going to just do the data list one because I didn't name it. Equals dot data source equals vs and data list one dot data bind. If it fails, it's going to be because of the because I did that URL thing. Let's see what we get. The fact that it's here means it probably failed. So it says it can't find restriction.
Maybe just capitalized or something.
I think the problem is that some of them don't have restrictions. So I probably have to go through and say if it's not there. See, there it goes. Now look at, this is a problem, right? It's returning things, but it's not returning them quite the way I want. So we are getting the stuff out of the database and it's getting here, but this is how it returns things. And there's an easy solution to that, and then I'll be done. What would you guys do for that? Any idea?
You want to change the way it's displayed? You just want to change the way it's displayed?
Well, I just want to change. I want it to not say ID equals venue equals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, and this will be a private method. I'm going to return a string, and I'm going to say, well, actually before that, I'm going to call it clean. What do we want to call it? Just clean data. Clean data. And it's going to take a string in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do int s dot, int something, int I equals s dot index of. Okay, so I'm going to find the equal sign. Okay. And then I'm going to string, well, actually, let's just do s. S equals s dot substring. We begin at I. And that's the starting index, except I think I want I+1, because I think otherwise I'll get the, yeah. Okay, and then what I have to do is I have to do clean data. And basically I have to do that for each of these.
What's the clean data do?
It's cleaning out that, so do I still have the other one showing? No. It's cleaning out the, you know how it had ID equals? Right, it had ID equals, it had address equals. So what I'm doing is I'm going in, I'm finding the index of the equal sign, and I'm only returning the characters after the equal sign.
Oh, you made that.
I made that, yes. So when I run it now, it should, see, I got rid of the equal. There's, it's not formatted super nicely. What?
It's the first time I see a good application of substrate.
Oh, yeah. Most of the time, I mean, basically, you need it to clean it out. I don't know if there's another way. There might be a method in the Mongo thing to get rid of it. I don't know. But that works really pretty quickly and easily. Now, again, this isn't necessarily pretty or anything, but we did the parts that are relevant, other than that I was proud that I could talk to Mongo, is the way that the classes work. And I didn't make a lot of classes. There's really 4 classes here. There's 3 in the app code here. So the venue is there, and I used it quite a bit, mostly in lists, but to store the bundles of data. So that's another nice thing about creating a class, is you can make a list of that object, and then that one object can store all that data. Otherwise, you'd have to make a list of every field, right, or something like that. So the venue is a way to bundle the data. You can store it in lists, etc. The venues is basically just getting a list. It does at the very beginning of it call this class, which gets it from the database. And it's usually a good idea to separate things out. There's a data layer, and if I were to really build this out, I would probably put this in a service rather than have it in the actual web application, just so that there's no direct contact between the web page and the database. And then the other class is basically the CS behind the web page. And it does show the basic pattern in terms of display classes, right? So typically you have display classes, you have your kind of business classes, and then you have your data classes, the ones that talk directly to the database. Okay, so that was my show and tell. I'm going to give you some time. You can work on the coding stuff. I will see where you guys are on Thursday. I might introduce the sequence diagrams. I could do one for this, and I might do one for that game thing and show you how the classes talk to each other. That's what sequences are about. They can be really useful. They're a little bit harder as the diagrams go, because they're fairly close to the actual classes and what's going on there. But they also can make a lot more sense when you look at them and see how things are going. Used to be in Visual Studio. Don't think it works now. But it used to be that I could, I'm pretty sure they took it out. There, you could generate a diagram What?
It wasn't in.
Yeah, I don't think it is in there.
It's in 2015.
Is it even in 2015? I think they took it out before that. It depends on but they used to have the ability to create a diagram like that, which was neat. I don't even think they have class diagrams anymore. Up. Ah, view class diagram. Class diagram service failed to load. Huh. All right. I'll post that on GitHub. I don't know if you care, but it's there if you want it. You could do, actually, Python and web pages. This is much easier than, with Python, you have to get a framework too, because Python doesn't talk to web pages directly. So, you guys have any questions?
What are we doing on Thursday?
Thursday, I'm going to kind of judge by where
Yeah.